Well, that one there, I never even felt the bite. You know, it just kind of, I couldn't feel the bait anymore. And, you know, it's not a very big fish. He probably bit it swimming at me. And, you know, you hear a lot of the big name tournament pros, they'll talk about being line watchers and watch what's going on to be able to, you know, tell when some of those subtle bites are. And I think that's a big key. And I'm not saying you got to sit there and stare at your line, but you got to kind of understand and feel what that bait is doing in the water a lot of times, so that you can you know, pick up some of those bites that are, you're not feeling that telltale tap tap. Because a lot of people, I mean, I get a lot of questions. What does a bite on a soft plastic bait feel like? And I mean, it's truly, if you're holding your rod, you can feel that tap. You know, you can feel it here. You'll feel a thump. You'll feel the pressure. Sometimes you don't feel any of that because the fish is coming at you. I mean, there's so many different variables and ways to answer that question.
Probably one of the most common questions you hear in fishing, especially bass fishing, is what does a bite feel like? And that's hard to explain to a lot of people what it actually feels like, because you got to get a lot of experience on the water in different techniques to be able to understand what that is. And even then, there's days that some people feel the bite better than others. And there's a variety of different bites that you can have when you're bass fishing. Topwater fishing, it's very, you know, visual. You're gonna see the bite. You're gonna watch the explosion. You'll see something happen on the water, a disturbance. Sometimes the fish jumps all the way out of the water. Conversely, if you're fishing 30 feet deep, you know, dragging a big football jig or some other bait, you're not gonna see that bite. So the bites are totally different. And so that's part of the mystery, the topic, and the scenario that a lot of people just can't ever figure out when it comes to bass fishing.
Man, that fish knocked 5 feet of slack in it. He hit it. I didn't feel him load up, and I kept winding. You know, a lot of times when you're winding baits like this, one of the biggest things, you know, you first feel that tick, and sometimes that's when to jump and set the hook, and other times it's better to just kind of wait a little bit and let him take off with it. On that one there, I felt him tap, and then I just kept winding and I didn't feel anything, and then he got it on the second time, or another one got it. You never know. Honestly, never know. We all think it's the same fish, but he got it that time.
When you start talking about a bite for a bass fishing trip, or any kind of fishing trip really, there's a lot of different ways to explain it. But I don't think you can ever explain it quite as good as just time on the water and feeling a bite. Obviously in topwater fishing, when you're throwing a topwater bait around, it's very visual. You know, you're winding a bait along the top, you're popping it, you're walking the dog when a fish blows up on it. Sometimes you even see the fish jump all the way out of the water. Other times you'll see it just an explosion. But what happens after that bite to be able to hook that fish is a total different scenario. You flip that around to throwing a crankbait, throwing a weightless worm, throwing a shaky head, throwing something out in 30 foot of water. All of those bites are different as well. There's a different feeling. There's a different thing that happens the way the bass takes the bait. There's a whole different process involved in that hook set. So you as the fisherman, hey, you gotta go fish more. You gotta spend more time on the water so that you can dissect and understand what a bite feels like.
Golly, this guy is mad. You're not that big to be that mad, buddy. That was one of those bites you'd love to have, where he just crushes it and there's no question in your mind. He tries to take the rod out of your hand and you sit back on him. Every bite is different.
To see more great content and take your fishing skills to the next level, subscribe to the Fisherman's Handbook YouTube channel. Here you'll find how-to videos, product features, and in-depth breakdowns that'll help you catch more fish. Just scan the QR code on the screen now and subscribe.
Golly, that fish hit me hard and fast coming my way. I watched him eat it.
When it comes to swim baits, that's another bait that you're winding a lot of times. And some swim baits, you really don't feel a lot when you're retrieving it. There's not a lot of thump, a lot of vibration. Yes, you do feel it a little bit, but not a lot. So when I tell people that are fishing, say a small swim bait, I love to throw small to mid-sized swim baits and wind them over cover, fish them shallow, fish them in the same situation. A lot of people are gonna fish spinner baits in. I fish them in clear water to off-colored water. And when I'm winding that bait in, a lot of times all you feel is just a tap, a tick. What is that tap or tick? Well, that's when that bass has finally closed his mouth and moved that bait around in there, and he's probably turned and moving in a different direction. So when you feel that, you kind of want to reel down and then jerk hard.
Come here. Well, this one's mean. I know you're not that big. Boy, you not slacking on that. Just winding that little swim bait through there. And I mean, he coming our way fast. He did not want to not get that in his mouth. That was a pretty good thump, you know, and that's one of them bites that anybody could feel. And sometimes though, you're reeling and retrieving and there's nothing there after that thump. That one was one of the ones that when I cranked back, he was chewing on it. Hooked him right where he wanted, right on top of the mouth.
So in this type of a small swim bait presentation, a lot of times I'll throw it on, somewhere between 14 and 17 pound test, Sunline Sniper. I'm basically throwing, there's not a lot of stretch in that line. That line actually sinks. It allows me to maintain better contact with it. Using a 3 or 4 rod offset Gatu extra wide gap hook with a very light, always below a quarter of an ounce weight in those situations. And I'm making long casts and I'm fishing it with a little bit of a bow in my line. I'm trying to keep my rod pointed at it or kind of in the general vicinity. And when those fish bite it, you feel that telltale tap, a tick as they're moving around with it. And you miss a lot of fish in that type of presentation, but it is such a deadly presentation to cover a lot of ground, to locate fish and generate a lot of bites. It's one of my favorite ways to fish.
We're using a mix of swim baits. This is a smaller one here with a little paddle tail, and this one's getting a little bigger on there, and we're just Texas rigging it. And it's a way that, if you watch, I do it a lot. It's got a little bit of light weight in there, and I let that weight, kind of swing free. And you can just fish it around all kinds of cover and grass, or some guys like to fish it with braid. I really like to throw it on 17 to 20 pound FC Sniper. That fluorocarbon sinks, great sensitivity, more than plenty to handle this. I mean, I could get whooped in here by a big one in this little pondweed peppergrass stuff, but it's just so castable and easy to work like this. And the way we're kind of fishing it along the edges of these ditches and grass, I mean, these fish it would be a great way to learn what a bite feels like, because God, that was another bite. You can see the big boil right there. Look, that one tore my bait all the way down. We missed him.
A lot of people will also fish these swim baits, small swim baits, especially in heavy cover on braided line. They'll throw 20 to 40 pound Sunline braid, the same line you're rigging up to fish your frogs in that same type of cover, especially if they're fishing it in heavy cover. Sometimes I'll bump up to 20 and even 20 pound fluorocarbon in those situations, and I just kind of let the bite and the situation and the conditions dictate what I'm gonna fish it on. But the main thing is understanding what that bite feels like and having the right setup to be able to handle those fish to cover a lot of water. It's just a way to generate a lot of bites, and you're gonna It's a great way to learn what a bite feels like, because you generally will feel that tap, you'll feel that tick a lot of times, and it's just something that'll get ingrained in your hands and in your brains. When you feel it, you know you've had a bite.
This guy here is covered in the grass. That's what we're catching him out of, pepball grass. Got him. Let him chew on it a little bit longer than the others. We're throwing swim baits, we're throwing frogs, we're just too many targets back here to pick everything. And you know, that time I watched that fish eat that frog and I thought he missed it. The last couple actually have missed the bait, and I kind of just let the frog go out of sight, and then I saw my line take off, and then I jerked. So that was one that patience paid off, but I barely had him hooked in the top of the mouth. I bet we can catch another one on the frog back here. That was cool. Let's see if there's one living in the culvert. That was just about a perfect cast. I missed him. God, I missed him. I was sitting there patting myself on the back on perfect cast, and what do? I jerk it the wrong time. I jerked too soon.
Topwater frog fishing, or topwater fishing for anything, is a good way to watch how bass react and where they're set up at.
God, so many of these fish are hitting right at the boat.
When you throw a topwater bait across the point, across the flat, near a bush, piece of cover, along rocks, whatever it may be, and you get a violent response, that's an aggressive bass. In that same situation, if you'd have pitched a soft plastic jerk bait, flipped a worm in there, you probably would have got the same thing. That bass is aggressively feeding, he's hungry, he's mad, he's looking to bite something. If you're throwing around a lot of times and you've got a lot of fish that are missing your bait, well, those fish they're kind of angry, but you're not doing something right maybe. It's not exactly what they want to eat. They're territorial, or they're just missing the bait. I mean, because you'll see that a lot of times in different situations. You'll miss them 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
God, I missed him. Bit it and he missed it.
You know, when it comes to fishing a variety of frogs over vegetation, one of my favorite techniques, late spring through early summer, heat of the summer into fall. Really, you can fish a frog year round, but there are certain windows that I think it just absolutely shines. Whether you're fishing a popping frog, a winding frog, or a frog that you're twitching on top to leave, kind of walk the dog type of scenario, the bites can be very violent. You'll see fish jump out of the water, you'll see them aggressively slash through the cover, and chances are you're going to have a lot of misses in that type of situation where the fish just misses the frog, or he's trying to get it, trying to get away from you. In those types of situations, as the fisherman, it's hard to do. I make this mistake all the time. I see the blow up, I jerk, frog comes flying back over my shoulder. But if you can be patient and actually watch that frog disappear, even see your line swim off to the side, almost like you're fishing a weightless soft plastic jerk bait or a stick style bait, man, you're gonna do a lot better in setting the hook and getting those fish in the boat.
Come here, fish. There's a good one right there. Holy cow. I mean, that fish jumped 5 feet out of the water to get that bait. That's an old timer right there. God, that feels good. That one was a tick, 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 and then it just got real heavy when he took it. Just loaded up. Got a mouthful of number 5 Gatu. Thank you, buddy. I am enamored by bites. I have said that many times. I just love to get a bite. There's just, that feeling never gets old. That mystery when you bend back, connect what's going to come up on the other end, and you know, here it's just really a pretty obvious. There's just a ditch running into this little back into this pocket with some rocks and scattered grass. The water's clear enough that you can see about 4 or 5 feet. It's just perfect for slowly reeling a little swim bait or casting a Texas rig. You could probably catch them on a fluke or obviously a topwater on this grass, but it just looks great for a little swim bait to me. Bite, another bite. You can see him thump it, but he hasn't got it. Hit it again. 3 times, but 4 times. It may be just a little bluegill eating them. Nope, ain't not a bluegill. Little bass. Gosh, I mean, that fish rattled and rattled and rattled that tail. He just kept chewing on it and chewing on it. Got you hooked good.
You know, your fishing line and your fishing rod are the 2 things that are going to connect you to the fish and therefore give you the best sensitivity or the feeling that's going to be transmitted into your hands on a bite. I use so many different lines for so many different applications, and we'll start there. Monofilament, I love monofilament still for a lot of my moving baits. If I'm winding something, I think there's a lot of advantage there in cold water, especially for crankbait fishing, the castability of it, but it's not as sensitive as fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon transmits your signals, that feeling of that bite, a lot better, but it can be a little bit more difficult in certain situations to manage. High winds for people learning how to fish, bait caster, they're gonna have problems with fluorocarbon. They may wanna learn how to fish with monofilament a little bit better, but when you look at fishing any of your soft plastics, Sunline Sniper transmits the bites so great, and the sensitivity and the durability of it when you get a bite is just phenomenal. Then if we take it to the braided lines, I mean, topwater fishing with a braided line, if I'm throwing a frog, it's the best way to go. You take like a Sunline braided line that you can throw out and move a frog across the topwater. You've got no stretch when you get a bite. You've got great sensitivity to feel that fish when he takes it. Then let's break it down to the fishing rod. Man, there's a lot of different fishing rods on the market. That's why when you go to a Bass Pro Shops or a Cabela's, the aisles are full of them. The catalog's got pages upon pages. Each one of those fishing rods is designed for a different application and a different technique. You as the angler, you got to spend some time learning which ones are going to produce best for you, which ones are going to give you the best casting accuracy, the best durability, the best for that technique that you're fishing. But the main thing you're looking for, in my opinion, is going to be how sensitive it is for the application that you're looking, so you can feel that bite, because that fishing line and those fishing rods are what connect you to that fish at the end of the day.
Got him cartwheeling out there. He did throw my bait off, but that was so cool. You are mean. You're gonna be a big one someday, because we're gonna let you go and say thank you. That was so cool. Man, I hooked you 3 different ways. I'm about to whack you. Man. I know. That was too cool.
You know, anticipating a bite can also give you an advantage. You know, I mean, we've all seen those places we think there should be a bass there. Whether that bass read the magazine or watched a TV show that says he should be there, may or may not be true, but I know if I'm throwing in certain situations and I've had bites in those types of places before or on that day, you kind of need to be anticipating that bite a little bit, and that'll help you understand that you got a bite, that you've seen a bite, or something's happened. So, you know, building that anticipation, understanding where a fish should be, and making a precision cast to a location is gonna kind of get you on the edge. It's gonna have you amped up. It's gonna have you expecting to get a bite.
Bass. Golly. Boy, he hit that little SPRO worm and said, that's mine. drug it by his house. And he thump.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Bass Pro Shops Fisherman's Handbook. This has been a Caraco TV production.